Welcome back to the Satoshi Chain. My name's Adam, and we're going to do a little special episode today. I'm going to be reading from the screen, something that I wrote at 3 a.m. in the morning, last night. It's part of consequence of my insomnia, but I'm working through it. I've got the cultists ring that I reported on recently, so I can give an update on that sometime soon. But I really wanted to talk about why I'm very interested in and obsessed with Bitcoin. What's really drawing me to this space, and it aligns very much with my history in philosophy, master's degree in philosophy, and that's what I kind of studied in school for a good 6 years or so. And I was drawn to that, as I think many people are, because they're very inquisitive and or they like debating, and they like wrestling with concepts in their mind over and over again. So here's my attempt to describe some of the phenomenon that I've seen and that I've felt, and to really ask some poignant questions, hopefully. I will refer to the naysayers of Bitcoin as non-coiners or no-coiners. No-coiners, I think. It's hard to find a term. I thought of like Fiaters or Fiatists or something like that, but it doesn't quite. Someone can be against Fiat, but also be against Bitcoin, a la Peter Schiff, and So no coiner kind of works. You just don't like the blockchain, you don't like crypto. Okay, so Bitcoin isn't just an anomaly, it's an epistemological rupture. One of the most improbable events in financial history occurred, and almost no one cares. Bitcoin's rise past 100,000 USD was, according to the mental models of nearly all experts and lay people, impossible. It was impossible. The impossible, ladies and gentlemen, the impossible happened. We got him. Consider this: Bitcoin reaching $100,000 was held as virtually impossible by innumerable financial experts and the vast majority of the population on this planet. Recall that Bitcoin was frequently spoken of as a magic internet coin with no inherent value and backed by nothing. And it's still frequently spoken about that way, even though it's reached such high valuations. That Bitcoin reached $100,000 was as unexpected, I think, as wave-particle duality. So that atoms behave as both waves and particles. The wave-particle duality shattered several dogmas in classical physics and spurred on research into new, unconventional paradigms. And yet in both circumstances, very few people understand Bitcoin or wave-particle duality. Both revelations were an absolute affront to expert consensus, or in the case of physics, just basic intuition that had lasted millennia. And both challenged and still challenge our understanding of the world. Both demand that we ask fundamental questions of our presuppositions. And let me not be coy here. If something is understood to be impossible, and then it happens, it must shatter at least one concept in those who thought it to be impossible. So again, if you propose that based off of your mental model, some phenomenon is impossible or virtually impossible, and it happens, you should probably re-examine your mental model and figure out which of one to many things was off there and caused you to kind of have this false reading, right? So one must admit that they had something fundamentally wrong when the impossible happens. In the case of Bitcoin surpassing $100,000, that thing could be, I'm just going to throw out a few ideas here. One's understanding of value and what value is and how people value things. It could be the depth and depravity of human greed and stupidity, which I think that's what a lot of people are still classing. Bitcoin's gone to 100,000 and I just didn't understand how stupid and greedy people were. It could be a misunderstanding of political power. The governments will never allow this, and come to find out that whether or not they want to have it or don't want to have it, it might be irrelevant. It could be a misunderstanding of what money is, or indeed what Bitcoin is, and so on. So the list could go on and on and on, right? I don't know the exact misunderstanding. Just raise this up here a bit. And yet in both circumstances, furthermore, most people believe that understanding these concepts has no bearing on their lives, right? In fact, to some extent, you can live a perfectly good life not understanding, physics on any sort of substantive level, And you can also live a perfectly good life not understanding money or Bitcoin, right? Although I think that's getting harder and harder. Both of these revelations are remote and irrelevant for most people, and yet my understanding is that each and every one of us wrestles with the consequences of currency debasement and state fiscal policy every day. It affects us deeply on our mortgage rates, at the grocery store, and quite frankly in our entire life planning. The fact that people are having kids later and staying at home in their 30s and carrying large amounts of university debt, I think is just all related to this. In Canada, by 2030, the statistic right now, from what I understand, will be that the average age of first-time homebuyers will be 40. All right, up from like 25 during my parents' generation. Which is an absurd statistic, and obviously signifies that there's something deep and broken, basically, within a system. When one hears a Bitcoiner say, never sell your Bitcoin, hold it and wait for the world to financialize around it, a lot of people roll their eyes, right? And they think, this fucking idiot got lucky enough to gamble and win on the magic internet token, but he's too stupid to sell it and take profits. And however, the masses fail to appreciate a few ironic aspects of this situation, of their exact exasperation with Bitcoiners. Number one, the only reason the individual bought and held for a prolonged period of time is because they believe it's a revolution in monetary technology. Or they simply forgot their private keys, right? One of the two. And they don't think that it's a vacuous token. This conviction arises from engaging with complex ideas about decentralization, scarcity, trustlessness, and post-fiat monetary systems, as well as the problems with current monetary systems in the form of fiat. These concepts are generally alien to the mainstream layperson, as well as mainstream finance and the people who opine on finance all the time. Number two, had the Bitcoiner held the beliefs and thoughts of the no coiner, they would never have bought the Bitcoin to begin with, and so there would be no position at all to have a debate about. And yet no coiners assume that no one could have sensible reasons to buy Bitcoin, and thus they preclude any reasoned possibility for holding it in the long term. In other words, for the no coiners, it's been a miracle that you somehow stumbled upon buying this thing, whether you were an idiot or not, and the only possible step forward now is to sell it. And I'm just saying, like, anyone who thought that way would never buy and hold Bitcoin for this long, right? So, I mean, it's a bit of a paradoxical situation. So no coiners have by and far, number three, no coiners have by and far done little to no substantive research on Bitcoin, and yet they still feel incredibly confident in their prescriptions about what Bitcoiners should do and how people in general should look at this phenomenon. And even in light of the infamous, fabled, impossible 100,000 price target, this is curious at best and alarming at worst. And, I think retrospectively now everyone's like, okay, it's reached $100,000, but it's not going to reach $1 million, and, here's why it's crazy. But these are the same people who, when you spoke to them 8 years ago, 10 to 8 years ago, maybe even just 5 years ago, would say, it is fucking impossible, this is never going to happen. And here they are standing in front of you, entirely incorrect of that proposition, not from too long ago, and they're willing to tell you what to do with your Bitcoin and your theorizing around this space, your epistemological positioning. So my fascination with and obsession with Bitcoin germinates from my obsession with epistemology, or the study of belief formation and knowledge acquisition. It buttresses my fascination with religion, religious dogma, and religious rhetoric, as informed by my anti-theism and atheism. In the context of theology, rhetoric around the non-believers being dogmatic is ubiquitous among the believers. Their false equivalency goes something like this: the true leap of faith is those who believe in science, for they believe the world came about without a creator. And to me, this retort has always rang quite hollow, and still does. The believer and the non-believer are not epistemically equal in my estimation. To me, And indeed, the scientific endeavor is one of removing falsities while never quite getting at the true nature of the universe. So that's my understanding, and as best as I can understand what the scientific method and endeavor is attempting to do. And so it is an entire misreading on science to begin with that causes the theist to go in a certain line of thinking, to claim that there's an equivalency in terms of faith and kind of bad faith arguments from those who are more skeptical and more sympathetic to the scientific process, essentially. While I could go on in detail about theological rhetoric, I want to focus on Bitcoin here. A similar claim is levied against Bitcoiners. It goes something like this: to have trust and faith in a relatively new technology and monetary system requires a great deal of ideological thinking and dogma. And consequently, the no-coiner can dismiss any and all points made by the Bitcoiner. This is, in my estimation, akin to claiming that no one can know something about something because you don't know about that thing yourself. So it's kind of like saying, I haven't become aware of this, I haven't looked into it much, but I haven't learned anything substantive about this thing. In fact, all I've heard about it so far is that it's dumb. And so I already understand that there's nothing to learn about that thing. It is just a stupid thing to begin with. And so consequently, the no-coiner can dismiss any and all points made by the Bitcoiner. This is, in my estimation, akin to claiming that no one can know, something about which you don't know. So Bitcoiners, on the other hand, are saying no, it is you who doesn't understand the fiat system, the history of money, and the consequences of fiat debt-based allocation, essentially. And to end this discussion, I want to say that it's a bit terrifying to be an advocate for Bitcoin, even though I might not show it. I don't know where money will come from to continue the growth that we've seen in Bitcoin for the next 20 years, right? We're already at the institutional level. How much more money is there in the world to flood in? But, Bitcoiners do have an answer to that. Just in terms of the total assets in all the world, as well as like, what is it called? Like options and derivatives trading. It's in the quadrillions technically. So, but I don't want to suggest that normal financial activity can be logically placed within Bitcoin. I think that all the speculative stuff, in some ways, what Bitcoin's trying to ignore. I'm sure Bitcoin will still be injected into this bullshit, but I don't know how that's going to play out. I don't know if energy will always be available to maintain the network, right? Especially in light of the AI data centers that are going to gobble it all up. Or whether the rewards and fees will be enough to motivate miners like indefinitely, or at least until the next 20 years. I can't be certain that Bitcoin will remain sufficiently decentralized, or that it won't suffer a 51% attack as a consequence of it not being decentralized. And this is already an issue right now between miners and, I believe, America and China. They're about 50% of the entire network. So it's already, geographically becoming more and more centralized. Better than when China was 70%, but still not great. I can't know that Bitcoin will reach $1 million USD per coin. I can't know that isn't a fundamental flaw within Bitcoin's code, or worse, within the very theory of Bitcoin and decentralized computing. I can't know whether there is not, specifically with increasingly powerful AI, there will not be the ability to spot and utilize any of these potential hidden problems within the code or the theory of Bitcoin. So once again, let me reiterate that being a Bitcoiner is a bit terrifying and perhaps borderline delusional. And let me also impress upon you that if it succeeds, and again, it very well might not succeed, but if it does succeed, that terror I'm highlighting and those unknowns are exactly why everyone from these early days will be eating very well. Once again, I hope that was interesting. My name's Adam from the Satoshi Chain, and I hope that was interesting. Leave me a comment below if it was. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, and take care. Bye now.